Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of L'Exclusive, the podcast hosted by PaperStreet Web Design and Marketing. As always, I'm your host, Nancy, and today I'm joined by Alex, our VP and Internet Marketing Director, as well as Clinton, our SEO Link Manager. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
Hello.
So today we're talking about a topic that a lot of our clients, in particular the attorneys, are not always too happy to talk about. So today we're going to talk about review management, how to get reviews, why you need reviews, what to do if you have a bad review, all of that. Because a lot of our clients, we'll try to tell them how important that it is to have reviews, but they're always very afraid. What happens if I have bad reviews? Is it worth it to have the good reviews? How do I get these reviews? So we're kind of going to turn this into a bit of a review management 101. And again, we always typically gear our presentations to attorneys. I'm an attorney myself. However, if you're a medical professional or other professional, these tips will also help you as well. So first and foremost, do you need these reviews? Absolutely, you do need these reviews. Take a moment and take a step back. Do you do anything without looking at reviews? Perhaps you've reached out to medical professional before looking for a review, maybe a restaurant, maybe a vacation, a hotel. Our society has become big on just doing this review search. Even if it's not the main decision maker, you're going to find that human nature is to look for a review. But even if you don't believe that aspect of it, let's just talk about the specific elements to it. Number one being credibility. Alex, would you like to step in here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as you touched upon, Nancy, I mean, nowadays reviews are everywhere. I mean, anytime anybody loads up Amazon, you're buying stuff based on the reviews of the product. Anytime anybody's looking to go to a restaurant, you're looking at the reviews that are, for that restaurant or a coffee shop or whatever the case might be. So, there's a reason for that. And as I always do, and those that have not only seen me in, some of these video podcasts or the podcasts that we just like talk about audio, like through the audio side or just in meetings itself, I use analogies all the time. And one of the analogies that I use for this, that I just think kind of hammers home the point of why reviews are so important. If the law firm themselves or your business is pushing the reviews and you're doing what you can to get reviews, that's essentially self-congratulatory. You're trying to do what you can do to kind of promote yourself. If your marketing team is doing it, they're in alignment with you. They're locked arm in arm. But if the reviews come in from an unsolicited sort of perspective, at least from Google's side or from the search engine side, that's akin to if anyone has a child that's listening to this, it's kind of akin to getting a compliment from a teacher or another parent. It's akin to the fact that this is a wonderful compliment that isn't essentially coming from a source that is a biased source. So the more that you can get that is this unbiased, valued, independent review, the better that is. And it is truly one of those things that it is quality along with quantity, which is actually where this overlaps a lot with Clinton and the SEO link management side. Not to go off tangent, but link management is pretty much that. It's all about quality along with quantity. So reviews are no different. The more that you can get, the better that they are, the better that metric is seen by the search engines. So that's the reason why. I mean, that is why they're necessary. That is why it is a core metric of Google's algorithm and all the search engine algorithms to look at where and how those reviews are coming in. So more, and the better quality you can get, the better you kind of seem to be for a user who might not know who you are and are just looking you up initially. So that is what inherently builds all that credibility. The credibility, once that's established, kind of does the obvious. It's more likely to lead to a conversion. It leads traffic to the site. It leads to that usability side of going through, to the site itself, and then, spending some time on that site, on your site, I should say. And then, the other side of it is also that there's that potential where it's a snowball effect sort of thing, where the more reviews that are coming in, the more reviews that people are leaving, especially when there is a firm that engages in those reviews, that is, thankful, that is basically, thank you for leaving this, review for us. It was a great opportunity to work with you as well. That sort of thing. That then essentially promotes additional reviews as well. So that's actually a source that could actually drive even more, potential further reviews that would be gathered. So it also, we have found, gives the firm or business an opportunity to review the process a little bit on how those reviews might be obtained and what we can do to actually collect those. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But I would say the last point that I really want to explain on the organic side, on the SEO side, is the benefits that come in from that. So I just mentioned in my analogy of, essentially getting this unsolicited prompted review, and Google tracks those metrics. The more that you get, the more that there are, the higher the quality that they are. That's a signal. That metric is a signal to Google that then goes, okay, well, this is one of the industry leaders. They are a complementary service to the people that are looking up this specific practice area. So that in turn thus helps rankings. It then moves you up a little bit. If maybe not a massive amount, it definitely is a piece of the pie for sure. So again, the more that we can get and the higher quality that they are, that assists. On a local level, when we all look at the local side, especially, there's some firms that work on a national level, but I would say the vast majority are care about how they're doing within the local environment that they're in, be it a city or a county or wherever they are. The more reviews that you have, the better chance that actually helps in promoting the firm up within the map pack listing as well, the Google Business Profile listing. It's not immediately going to jump. To be very clear, you do need all of the other important benefits of SEO, like link building power and relevant content. So in other words, do not take that as, to be very clear, do not take that as just by getting reviews, you're going to make it into the map pack. That is not the case. But it is certainly going to help. So once we get those additional reviews, that is actually another, really good benefit on a local level. And again, I think that ultimately then ties into probably the portion that Clinton might want to talk about, is inherently just simply life and how it works. The more reviews that you get, there are going to be, bad reviews that do come in here and there. And what happens when you do get one of those bad reviews.
And just before Clinton jumps in, like I said, just a quick summary of all that, because Alex gave a lot of good points there. And if you're kind of a marketing novice, you may not have caught all of that. But just to quickly review everything, number one, it's going to get you more leads by having a lot of good reviews. In fact, it's estimated that 90% of people, no matter what they're searching for on Google, are going to read a review first. So even if you took that 90% with a grain of salt, even if you said, well, that can't be true for law firms, even if it's 70% of people will check reviews, do you want to gamble on that 70%? Number two, as Alex mentioned, it's a great way to check your feedback. So, in other words, if somebody comments about you and says, great answering service, or if you see another law firm's review, oh, the receptionist is wonderful, the office was wonderful, we loved the waiting room, or anything even simple, it'll give you an insight into what people think about that you yourself may not think about in terms of your office, your procedures, and things like that. Number three, the biggest thing that, like I said, matters most to us here in the marketing side of things, and as I always say, I was on the SEO team. It does help with your rankings. We can't say for everything, but it'll help. It'll help you appear in the map pack, as Alex illuminated so wonderfully. And a lot of times people just look at that map pack. And lastly, it allows for something called local service ads, which is something that is an alternative to Google ads, where depending on how many reviews you have, where you're located, and how many of those are positive reviews, it's actually can be a very much more cost effective way to market as opposed to simply just doing Google ads because you will only pay when somebody contacts your firm. And like I said, it's based on your reviews. So it's kind of like saving money by way of your reviews.
That's a great point, Nancy. Yeah, the local service ads, it is definitely a metric and factor that Google looks at in how often and how frequent those local service ads are displayed based on how many reviews you actually had. Because again, the whole point, hence the name, they are local service ads. So, on a local level, the more reviews that you have, the more beneficial it is that it actually helps promote your local listing. So,
Exactly. So, like I said, we could go on for another 20 minutes talking about why you need these reviews, but let's get to the point that everybody asks us or everybody tells us. I don't want reviews because I'm scared of a bad review. It happens. Somebody has a bad dish at a five-star restaurant. They're going to be the one to complain. A doctor's office, they can't treat the patient takes it personally. They complain. Law firms, it's no different. What if they didn't win your case? What if you can't take their case? What if the settlement wasn't high enough? What do we do about these bad reviews? Do we just not allow for reviews because of bad reviews? What happens if I get a fake review? All of that. We know this is what concerns everyone. So, Clinton, let's help our audience feel a little better and let's talk about these for everybody.
Yeah, so first of all, you shouldn't let the fear of bad reviews stop you from getting reviews in general. As we've just talked about how important they are for SEO and for your rankings, but also on a human level of the people searching for your business. You want to have those good reviews coming in so people can find you and know how your service works. Bad reviews happen. We have ways of dealing with them, but they're not going to be as such big of an issue that you should avoid all reviews altogether. If you do get these bad reviews, as you and Alex mentioned, life happens. The best thing that you can do is respond to it. Google allows you to add a reply to any review on your profile. And really, you should respond to all reviews, good or bad, to show that you're engaged with your customers who are giving you these reviews. Thank them for their nice words if it's a good review, and if it's a bad review specifically, acknowledge the issue, apologize for whatever issue they might have, offer a solution if you can. That shows on a human level that you care and you want to try to make things better. And on a less human, more SEO algorithm based level, it shows engagement that you're active with the profile. You're adding more content to it continuously. You're keeping up with it, and the algorithm really likes that too.
that's great information. And I know you and I get this question a lot. And I think users that are listening in here or watching this would really benefit from it. Please delete my bad review. Uh, there's a question we get quite frequently. Can you speak to everyone and kind of let them know how that is not necessarily possible and, talk about that a little bit further?
Yeah, of course. So Google has guidelines for reviews, and if a review violates these guidelines, such as threats, hate speech, foul language, then there are methods that you can go through to report the review that will go through their automated system to flag it for potential violations. And if it does very blatantly violate their guidelines, then it will get removed. But if it's more of, oh, they left a bad review and I don't like it, or this person never actually used my business, it's not very likely that Google is going to accept that. If it's a bad review, period, you can't just take it down. There's no way to do that because Google wants to offer, a transparency and allow people to speak to their experience. If it's a so-called fake review, even if it is actually fake and they never visited your business, or if it is not, Google has no way of knowing that. They're not going to check your call logs and go through each name and say this person who left this review is the same as this person who called, or it's not, or we didn't see. Google's not going to do that. Most of it comes through an automated system. So while that may be in violation technically of their policies, they're not going to necessarily follow through on that and take the review down.
we've been saying so far is true all along as well. Responding to a fake review is the best thing you can do, because if somebody has never talked to you, never hired your office, and you simply respond to the review and say, we are quick to say, or however we format it, to say this was not an actual client of ours, we appreciate, you taking the time to understand that. And of course, if it was a real client, they'll fire back and say they were. But in our experience, or at least from anything that I've ever seen, I've never had somebody try to defend their fake review. So if you point it out and say, no, Susan never came to our office, never hired us as a response, Susan is not going to automatically come back and say, well, yes, I did, because they don't have it in them to fight this that much. And if they do have a personal vendetta, then by all means report it to Google and do the best you can with that. But like I said, taking the time to say, no, this was not, something that happened, then at least it's something that you could do to defend yourself. And the same way is true if you're having all of these positive responses. So every time somebody left a good response and you thank them for their time, it's wonderful working with you, John, blah, 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 blah. So when you do respond to a fake or a bad review, it also helps you establish credibility by saying, well, he's been responding thus far, she's been responding thus far. If she's clearly saying this one was fake, then it must have been fake, and even like I said, if you get this one star review and you have 35 and 4-star reviews, that one review is not going to be why someone didn't hire you. Again, it's not worth living in fear of that one review, which, like I said, takes us to our next point. People are inherently natural to leave bad reviews, especially when it comes to things like restaurants, hotels, movies. There could be 30 people who had the best dish of their lives in a restaurant one night, but the one person that complains is going to be the one that thought it was too spicy or something like that. And so 29 people won't respond, one negative person will. Which is why, even if you yourselves as a law firm or a business are not trying to get reviews because you live in fear of that bad review, the bad review may still happen. So what you have to do is review management means you have to be proactive. You have to get these good reviews so that when you do get the bad apple or the fake apple, we'll say, you have an arsenal of people who say, well, this firm is wonderful. Well, one person had a bad experience, don't know why that happened, but we're happy. We won money, we loved them, they helped us. So in other words, being a good offense is the best defense in case you do get that bad review. So let's just talk a little bit about that, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, you also kind of touch upon some really good points. It's funny, not funny, but if anybody looks at any sort of reviews about anything, be it a hotel, be it, an Amazon product, be it a restaurant, it's generally the bookends of both sides of the experience, right? Somebody either had an amazing, wonderful experience and they leave this great review, or the complete opposite. There's generally not a lot in the middle of the road, where people are like, well, it was okay, but it wasn't, So it's again, it's funny, not funny, but generally it is both sides of the story. It's the pendulum that has swung both ways in the reviews that we all get, all of us. And so that goes back again to the point that Nancy was making of, and as I mentioned in the beginning of our discussion here, sheer quantity. It's quantity. It's quality amongst quantity. So the more that you can get, if you do happen to get those anomalies of the 1-star review, it gets buried, so to speak, by all of the other positive reviews that supersede that. So yeah, how do you get them? How do you get reviews? This is one of the biggest struggles that I think reviews encounter. There's several different ways that it actually can happen in order for someone to get a review. I would say our top and first and foremost one is strike while the iron is hot, meaning 99% of law firms, when they're resolving a case with a client, they're sending a wrap-up email. They're having a final conversation, especially when funds are being kind of handed out in an award settlement. That's a perfect opportunity to especially if you had a wonderful experience working together, to just say, hey, if you don't mind, for all the reasons that we're going through, could easily be summarized. But it benefits us. It obviously, kind of leaves a great impression and mark for other clients, potential new clients that are seeking our services. If you don't mind, could you leave us a review? And so just simply by asking, especially while striking while that iron is hot. And again, if we all collectively, if one thinks about it, uh, contingent on what the practice area is, but sometimes, this might be like a bad incident that somebody's trying to move on from, like, especially if it's like personal injury, if it was a motorcycle accident or a car accident or, something with like traumatic injuries. I mean, that's something, as we all know, there's a gestation period within the legal process, and this might have been months and months and months ago that this event or incident occurred, and someone is trying to look forward and in their lives, and they're not necessarily to kind of look back. So it's less likely, is my point, that after the case is resolved and, we reach out 2 or 3 months later and say, hey, would you mind leaving a review? That's generally not going to happen. People have then moved on with their lives. So again, it's really important to strike while the iron's hot and try to do what we can, be it via email, or even an application service. So we at PaperStreet have a service here that's actually called attorneyreview.me. And the whole purpose of it is exactly what we're talking about. It's actually to boost your reviews in the way that those reviews are obtained. And it's all predicated off of kind of what we're talking about, striking while the iron's hot, and then sending out emails that will help promote and prompt that. But there's tons of applications that are out there. And so that's definitely one that can be beneficial. They're often known as drip campaigns, where it's almost like continually reaching out. You obviously don't want to tarnish that relationship or burn any bridges or continually hound someone. But it can essentially drip out where it reminds them, maybe the initial email, and then 2 weeks later, and then perhaps a month later, and then, you let it be. But there are definitely ways to continually do that, and applications that'll do that. Some of the other ways is, you can set up private pages on your site, where we've actually done this for a lot of our clients, where we actually have a whole page called Submit a Review, and only we at PaperStreet and the firm themselves know what that link is. And again, that would be something that you could send out to a client. It allows them to go to that page, and I'm paraphrasing heavily, but it basically gives them the opportunity to simply click a button and then go to wherever they could leave a review, be it, something like Google Maps or Apple Maps, or, Yellow Page listings or Yelp or whatever the case might be, wherever you want to direct them and, leave that review. And then I would also say, the traditional side of marketing, offline, if you will, where, there could be the pamphlets that are essentially sent out with QR codes. I myself just recently received one in the mail for something like that. And then going back to the more digital side, email newsletters and sending out newsletters, where it again briefly summarizes what we're talking about here, where it could be, kind of the benefit and how the firm is, more than grateful when someone does leave a review, and just essentially prompting that, it's, as the saying goes, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if you just mention it in that newsletter and just, try to promote it as much as possible, the more that you can do, again, it's kind of the law of averages. The more that you can kind of promote that, the more that you could potentially hit your audience, and then the more that you would get. So yeah, those are probably the best ways that we would recommend doing. But again, first and foremost is striking while the iron is hot. That's why I pushed that so much. We have heard direct feedback from firms that probably the most times that users are likely to leave that review is right while the case is getting resolved.
Exactly. It's like what Alex said about our service here at PaperStreet, the attorneyreview.me. We have the ability that you could email directly these clients as soon as they're done. And the good thing is like with our service, you could send a personal email message. You could customize what you want it to say and just say, thank you, for your time. We really appreciate it. However you want to phrase it to get that review. And really sending those catered messages to especially the sensitive ones, like if it's a personal injury case, that's important. But what I also want to just elaborate on is, the pamphlets and the QR codes and things like that. It's like what I always tell our clients with everything that I'm consulting them on. Don't have backside it with anything. Don't just send a little tiny slip of paper that says, here, leave a review. That's not what we're talking about. If you are a estates and trust lawyer, maybe you helped resolve, the creation of a will or some sort of conflict. Give the client, as they're leaving, a resource guide of things that they'll need to do. When do they need to change their will? Where to keep your will? Things like that. And then on that document, have the information about leaving a will, because maybe you forget when you're leaving the office to ask them to leave a review. Maybe they forget to leave a review when they're leaving the office simply because they're on their way home, they're picking up their daughter from school, whatever it may be. But if you create a document that they're going to keep, and that has the QR code, they'd be like, maybe a couple days later, oh yeah, they were really helpful. Let me send a review. And it doesn't just matter for estate planning. That was just one example. If you're a family law attorney, give them a resource guide about children's communities in the area or after school pickup for the working parents and things like that. And that's something that they'll want to save and have the little review application at the end of it as well. Don't make it big, don't make it obnoxious where it's clear that you were trying to prompt the review. But if you create these materials that is helpful to a client, it'll A, keep them in mind if they need you later on. But B, like I said, they'll keep the document, they'll keep whatever is helpful. And like I said, they'll be like, oh yeah, they were really helpful. Let me leave a quick review if they have the time. Again, too, we are all a digital marketing age. We are in the digital marketing field. We know it's very successful. We like it. But there is still merit to the old traditional postcards every once in a while, or Christmas holiday card, pamphlets. Don't forget to include even just a teeny bit of dollars and cents available in your budget for something like that. And last but not least, the last thing that I just want to talk about is just 2 seconds, of your time. Just don't forget that if you are asking for reviews, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever format you're using, just check your local bar rules, state bar rules, your local community bar rules, just to make sure that you're not using terminology you're not supposed to be using or anything along those lines. Every time, like I said, reviews are part of the process and things like that. That's normal, but every state is different. I know New Jersey is particularly strict for one. So just like I said, just don't get yourself in particular headaches and cross that line when, again, the main message is get those positive reviews, but just don't give yourself any headaches by not checking your bar rules for something along those lines. All right. Well, we certainly hope we've convinced you. Not necessarily we're convincing you to be a PaperStreet client, but we hope you've convinced you. If you're listening, get those good reviews. They'll be good for you in the long run. We promise. All right. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Clinton. Thanks for joining me today. Thank you at home for listening, or if you're watching us on YouTube, it's available there too. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye now.